everybody, Maria here from Magic the Amateuring with my top 10 list of ways to get better at draft. Draft is notoriously one of the most tricky formats in Magic to master, but I think it's also the most fun. So here we go. Number 1, read the signals. So what do we mean when we say we're reading signals? What we mean is we're getting passed cards from our right, and we need to make an assessment on what cards are being passed, how good they are, what colors were being passed, how much of those colors, and how well everything works together. So if I'm seeing a lot of amazing white cards coming my way from the right, I know that I should probably move into white because whoever is on my right is not drafting that color, and that means I will have a way stronger deck if I'm able to pick up a ton of cards that are really good that nobody else is drafting. The right side is by far the most important side to be concerned about in draft. You're getting 2 packs from this way, you're only getting 1 coming from this way, so while the left, it is important to note what's happening, really that side is kind of out of your control because that person is reading your signals and they're just gonna do what they're gonna do, You can't control other people. But from your right is where you really want to pay attention. Your first picks, maybe 1 through 3, you've got to remember that you might have to abandon them. So don't fall in love with your pack 1, pick 1. That's okay, you can trade it later. Just keep that in mind, trade it or sell it. Build a commander deck around it if you can. And let me tell you this, the more flexible you are and the more willing you are to abandon your first few picks in a draft in favor of the color that you're seeing coming to you that's open from your right, the better your deck will be. Because draft decks are not made on the back of 1 rare or even 1 mythic rare. They're made on the back of tons of commons and uncommons that you put in your deck. When you're reading signals, that also means don't force a color, okay? If you think that red is the best in this draft, great. Guess what? Probably all the table thinks red is the best in this draft. And then everyone's gonna try and draft red, and then everybody's decks are gonna be just terrible. Sometimes, yes, certain colors are way stronger in sets than other colors, like white was when we had cards like Triplicate Spirits. It's just best to stay open and draft a deck that's open rather than trying to force one that ends up not being open and you're scraping for your playables. I should point out here that it is really important to have solid card evaluation skills in this portion of the draft because you're going to have to know what kind of cards are good, right? If you're just starting out as a Magic player, that can be super hard and you haven't learned yet how to tell if one card is really great and another card is really crappy. So that's just something you learn over time, and we'll probably do another video on how to evaluate cards. But in general, you can ask yourself the question, am I getting what I pay for with the mana cost of this card? Does it have a really big board effect, or is it removal? Those are the first few things and ways to evaluate a card. Number 2, learn the cards in the format, and maybe even more importantly, learn the tricks. Nobody likes studying, but it's Magic, okay? So it's fun. It's not like you have to do calculus. Knowing the set is super important because you get to know what cards are good by seeing what the relative strength of other cards in the set is. You get to know the tricks of the format. That means instants, that can sometimes mean sorceries, that can sometimes mean auras, but most importantly, instants. When you know what instants are in the set, you can know what to expect from your opponent when they make an attack that's kind of suspicious, or a block that you're like, this is not an advantageous block for them. Why might they be doing it? Or what's a manner that I can attack that will make the trick that they are probably holding in their hand pretty useless? Something I like to do if my opponent is making a suspicious attack is look at what mana they have available and what tricks in the format might that mana represent. Number 3, have a really good idea of the archetypes either in that specific set or in Magic in general, which also means having a good idea of the color pie. So it's super important to know what certain colors want to do in a format. What the heck do I mean by that? Colors aren't sentient, Maria. What are you talking about? You're crazy! Certain colors and color combinations in a set want to be doing certain things in certain decks. For example, the Boros deck wanted to be attacking with a bunch of little dudes really fast. And I knew that if I was drafting white and red, that's what I wanted to be doing. The Rakdos deck similarly was about beating down and smashing face and killing people. I love Rakdos. But I knew that going into those drafts, and that's how I was able to draft effective decks, because I knew that the Rakdos deck wasn't about hanging back and trying to play big beefy dudes. It's about playing guys early on and smashing with them early on. There are a lot of assumptions you can make based on the magic color pie. The color pie magic has 5 beautiful colors: red, white, black, green, and blue. And each one of them have a color identity. Red is associated with attacking and direct damage. Black is associated with kill spells and life gain. White is associated with exile or detaining creatures and justice. Green is associated with a lot of damage and big beefy creatures. Blue is associated with control magic, meaning counter spells and things that basically make the game terrible for people who play it. If you know those basic things, you can assume what the colors want to be doing in any given draft without knowing the set. Of course, you should go in knowing the set, as I said earlier, but if you can't, knowing the color pie and what the colors generally want to do will help you a lot in draft. Number 4, have a plan. So what the heck does having a plan mean? Maria, I'm 35, I still live with my mom. I don't have a plan. I eat pizza rolls and dry toast for dinner. What that means is that your deck has been drafted in such a way that it has a cohesive game plan, a way of winning the game. So if you want to draft an aggressive deck, you want to have a lot of little creatures, you want to have tricks to back them up, and ways to push through final points of damage. If you want to build a controlling deck, you know that you want to have creatures that can be early blockers with big toughness numbers, and perhaps spells that counter what your opponent is trying to do. If your deck has a cohesive plan, there's a lot better chance that it's going to do what it wants to do. If your deck is fighting with itself, like you have some little tiny creatures, and then you have some big creatures down here on the other end, and then there's kind of nothing in the middle, your deck has is sending mixed messages. It doesn't know who it is or what it wants to do. Should I attack early? Well, maybe a little, and then I'm going to peter out and do nothing. Oh, now it's late in the game and I played this stupid 4/6 that doesn't do anything. Well, yeah, but none of my early creatures do anything either, and now I'm sitting here like, oh, my deck had no plan, it's a mess! We'll talk a little bit later about how to have a plan for your deck while you're drafting. Number 5, stop the hate! What I mean by hate is hate drafting. Just don't do it. What hate drafting is drafting a card out of a pack that you have absolutely zero intention of ever playing or even putting in your sideboard. The reason you're taking it is you're keeping it from somebody else at the table, which is just rude, quite frankly, and also a bad game plan. Why? Because in a normal pot of 8 people, the chances you'll play against somebody who is playing that card is already very small. And the chances that they will actually play the card against you in a game is smaller yet. What you're giving away when you hate draft is a chance to take a card that could potentially go in your deck or go in your sideboard. Okay, so you're giving up that pick. You're essentially taking whatever pick that was and tearing it up into pieces, which doesn't do you any good. If you get down to the dregs of the final packs and there's cards that you're never gonna play in any situation, perhaps not even in your sideboard, whatever, then it's sometimes fine to take what you think is the best card because you're not gonna play any of that stuff anyway. But in any other scenario, do not hate draft. You do not see players at the Pro Tour saying, "Oh, this card's really good. It's in my second pick, in my second pack. It's not in my colors. I'm gonna take it. I can't switch colors. I can't abandon this time. I'm gonna take this card and I'm gonna steal it from all the other players. And I'm just not gonna get this pick because I don't care about Magic and I'm on the Pro Tour." Number 6, abandon shiny card syndrome. What do I mean by shiny card syndrome? This is something that I'm still personally working on because I love shiny cards. What it means is that don't take a card just because it looks big and flashy and is a mythic rare. Be willing to take a really solid common or uncommon that could go even better in your deck. Abandon the need to say, "Ooh, this card is amazing and powerful and I could really stretch my mana. I could play maybe 3 colors and put this in my deck and it'll be sweet and awesome."
Magical Christmas Land is great! There's snow!
This goes for even pick one, pack one of a draft. I've seen LSV take a common or an uncommon so many times that he's abandoned a gold card or even a mythic rare in favor of what seems like an ordinary common because it's just solid removal. Sometimes you need to take the card that's just quite frankly the best card in the most decks and let go of a card that might be super flashy or might be multicolored, which is really hard to start out your draft with a multicolored card because you're committing to a color combination before you even read the signals of what's going on to your right. So just be ready to say goodbye to cards that look really shiny or flashy if a card that's a common or an uncommon is just simply going to be a better fit in your deck or is just a better overall card in general. Number 7, learn to memorize your picks. This is something else I'm personally working on. If you've ever watched the Pro Tour, you'll see players doing this. So when you draft at a certain level, you're not allowed to review your picks until the end of the packs. You just have to draft and put it in a face-down pile in front of you. If you're playing at your LGS at an F&M or something like that, you're usually allowed to look at your picks and people don't get too mad about it. But the thing is, no matter where you're playing, if you work on memorizing your picks just a little bit better, you'll become a better drafter. What did I take? What did I take? Did I take that 2-drop? Did I take red? What was that green one? What do I need? Oh, where is my cards? And then if you end up playing a PPTQ in your area and you end up getting in the top 8 for a draft, you won't be totally shocked when you aren't able to look at your picks in between, which happened to me, and I drafted one of the worst decks that I've ever drafted. No, the worst deck I've ever drafted in my entire life because I couldn't for the life of me remember what I first and second picked. So it's a skill that will aid you down the road and it will help you just become a better deck builder in the meantime, memorizing your picks. Number 8, watch the greats. That's right, get out your computer or your phone or your space tablet, whatever you have, and watch some really good players draft. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can do it on Twitch when people are streaming. You can go to channelfireball.com and watch a bunch of drafts. You can go to YouTube and search for drafts. People out there record their drafts all the time. All the best players in the world. You can watch LSV, you can watch Owen Turtenwald, you can watch anybody that you've admired or a player that you just personally really like. Chances are they have a draft video or two that you can watch to become a better player. Even if it's not the current set that's out, watching somebody draft is great no matter what set they're doing because you can gain insights overall on how they draft, and they'll usually talk about the picks they're making, why they're making them, that sort of thing. The more people you watch draft and play the decks that they've drafted, the better you will be at the game. When I say watch the greats, I also mean listen to the greats. Listen to limited resources for awesome tips on becoming a better drafter. They have a whole back catalog, and most of it, even though it's old, it's still totally relevant for today. You could also listen to my podcast. Number 9, fire up Magic Online. So this is kind of one of the no-brainers on the list. If you want to be better at draft, you just have to draft more. But sometimes it's hard to get 8 people together to draft. Sometimes your LGS is only running standard events or whatever. But the good news is Magic Online exists and you can go on there and draft to your heart's content as many times as you like. There's even leagues now, so you can draft kind of on your own schedule. By getting those reps in, you'll become a better player. You'll understand more about the stack, how different abilities on cards work just by using Magic Online and getting those practice reps in. If you have a play group that's willing to test with you or play drafts with you any time of the week, awesome, congratulations, your friends are great, okay? Make use of it, draft with them. You wouldn't be here if you didn't love draft, so I'm just encouraging you to play more, which is probably a good thing. If you don't have a play group and you want to learn to play better in person, don't be afraid to ask the best players in your area if you can draft with them. Playing with people better than you is the #1 way to get better at all kinds of Magic. Number 10, know your strengths and your weaknesses. Know your strengths and weaknesses going into a draft. For instance, I'm an aggressive player and I like to draft and play aggressive decks, and I'm good at it. I'm not necessarily as good at playing control decks, and because of that, I often misvalue certain cards. So I'll overvalue cards that are aggressive and undervalue cards that are defensive or more controlling. That's not necessarily very good. So I understand that I have a weakness and I'm not good at control, and so I need to kind of reset my brain's priorities on which cards are really good. There are players like Craig Wesco who's really good at playing white decks, and he knows that, and he drafts them. Some might even say he forces them. This is not necessarily super terrible because Craig's become a master at drafting white, and he will draft something else if it's more open. If you see equal amounts of colors and cards coming from you in 2 different kinds of strategies and you're better at one than the other, it's totally fine to prioritize one over the other. But understanding that you have them is the first key. Well, there you have it, my top 10 list of ways to get better at draft. Go out there and play as much draft as you can. It's an amazing format, and I wish you all the luck in the world. In the comments, let me know if you've got your own special tips for drafting or getting better at draft, and I hope to see you around soon. Good luck, high five.